Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of It's Another Thing on the E2KG Network podcast channel on YouTube. My name is Agasicles Stamas, here, as always, with my faithful companion, Mr. Dave Pecci. How are you doing, Dave?
Good. How are you, Agasicles?
Good, good. And It's Another Thing is one of our entertainment segments, part of an ongoing entertainment series where Dave and I focus on having discussions about what I call short-form video content, short-form broadcast content, which is television series, which are of a shorter length than what we're normally accustomed to here in North America with a 22-episode season. So Dave and I like to kind of take some of the smaller chunk shows, like the Netflix series that are anywhere from 6 to 13 episodes in length. And right now, this month, we have been covering Jessica Jones Season 2, and that is where we will pick up and continue. So tonight, we are focusing on episodes 7 through 9, which is largely kind of what I've been thinking of as a familial arc, which, Jessica Jones is kind of a singular, standalone, loner type character. So it's kind of unusual and a bit of a taste change to have a whole arc of the series that focuses on her, on a lot of family relationships.
And by the way, this is a spoiler podcast. Throwing that out there as soon as I can.
Yes.
If you have not seen the show, go watch it now and be caught up to episode 10 because we're covering 7 through 9 right now.
Yes, Dave is very good about keeping me honest about that because I will barrel roll right through it and be dropping spoilers before any of us have an opportunity to talk about it. So, Dave, I kind of thematically tonight want to go through 5 kind of topical areas rather than like a blow-by-blow, scene-to-scene discussion of the show. So, as we get started here, I'm still trying to think of what 4 and 5 are. I have the first 3. But I kind of want to talk about, while I'm getting the social media out, I'd like to pass it over to you and let you get started. So across this arc, again, episode 7, 8, and 9. So 8.
Well, I actually have a couple of questions to throw your way, too.
Okay, all right. So what I wanted to kick off with is this series of 3 episodes is clearly heavily about Jessica and her mom. So I kind of want to talk to you here. I kind of want to talk through, how do we like that chemistry? How do we like that banter? Is it weird? Does it feel out of place? How do you feel like they overall handled it? Again, we talked last episode about how there's kind of a weird thing because we're kind of, for people coming into this series, and again, I'm still not certain if this content that we're seeing portrayed is representative of what's in the comics. I have not been a deep reader of Jessica Jones. I have read a few things that have covered that character. Mainly, last year I read, last year or the year before, I think 2016, I read the first 6 episodes of AKA Alias, I think it was, by Brian Michael Bendis. And of course, that character had some source material before that in other comics. But this is kind of, for some people, this may kind of feel like a retcon of what we traditionally think of as her origin. For those of us who may be not as familiar with the character, we believed her origin was a certain thing. Now they're doing this thing where supposedly her mother survived. So I kind of want to hear you talk about how you like the chemistry between the 2 actresses, the chemistry between the 2 characters, and how you feel like this content is being handled overall within the context of a superhero show, which is 99% of all superheroes are some kind of orphan. So, so talk me through that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned the orphan thing because there used to be a saying in psychology or something like that where every hero kind of has this hero's journey, and every kid kind of chooses their hero's journey growing up. And so usually that hero is orphaned and they have to go kill somebody to avenge or something like that. Anyways, I honestly think these 3 episodes were exactly what I wanted. I liked them a lot. I really enjoyed the dynamics we've seen so far with Alyssa and Jessica. And I was really, episode 8, I think, got right into it, where Jessica made up her mind. You know, and I think she gave her mom a bit of a redemptive chance before she turned her in right away. She's like, well, maybe I could see if I can rehabilitate this person, right? Because that's what we always try in society. That's what Captain America tried with Winter Soldier. And in the end, Winter Soldier, he decided, I need to go to sleep. I can't control who I am. And I think Jessica comes to this conclusion that we see in episode 8, that her mom has this survival instinct that was put in her. And so anything that portrays that's going to endanger her, she's going to try to kill that. And Jessica realizes there's no way that she can stop that survival instinct in her mom. It's unfortunate. It's heartbreaking seeing that happen, that she's pulled away by the cops. Especially if you're, like, for me growing up, I had to watch my sister get pulled away by the cops once. And so for any family member out there that has seen that, it's an emotional, traumatic experience. And that scene was an emotional experience. And so I felt like emotionally we needed to see that bonding time between the two before, because I think with most dramas, there's always the highs and the lows. And so we had a high, and now we're kind of in the low part of all of this. And shit really hit the fan come episode 9, I think. And I watched into episode 10, and things, man, shit's still hitting the fan. And it makes me wonder, I mean, where we're going to go with season 3. And that would be kind of my question to discuss with you, Agasicles. Do you think season 3, we're going to see a bit of normal life coming to Jessica? Or is she going to have to realize that she's a super and normal isn't going to be really easy for her to accomplish? Having a normal dating life, a normal business life.
Yeah, I think there's not going to be any amount of normal on this show, right? This is noir, and it's kind of weird superhero noir, covering kind of the shady underbelly in some ways of the superhero universe, and I think it's deliberately so, and I think the show embraces that. So unfortunately, no, I think, and I haven't looked ahead to episode 10, so I'm not sure where it's going. It feels like one of the things that I guess that I'm curious about is, again, some of our compatriots, other podcasters doing other entertainment shows who I still keep up with and see their thoughts going by on the Twitterverse, have not been very happy with this show. It looks like at the end of episode 9 to me like this season might be a split break season, meaning they've been dealing with one kind of big bad or one issue up until episode 9. I'm wondering, does that, as far as the action part of the show, is this thing with her mom kind of over, and does the action now turn to other elements that are being dealt with? It struck me as very curious that through episode 7 through 9, we have lost the thread on what's going on with Griffin and who he's working with, and why he was involved in this stuff between Trish and her involvement in the IGH investigation, where it looked like maybe he was working for IGH, and maybe that's the only reason he had gotten close to her. With the setup to this point,
I read some of the episode recaps, and I don't think we see any more of him, which is really weird for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in episode 9, which is AKA Shark in the Bathtub, Monster in the Bed, we do see him supposedly reporting live from Syria.
That's as much as we get from what I gather from the rest of the season.
Right, and I just feel like that's kind of disjointed. I'm like, so we did this whole build-up of him notionally being a bad guy and maybe working for IGH.
But I think they need to save some stuff for season 3, is what I'm trying to get at, because from what I'm gathering, I think that this is all going to wrap up, and so there's like usually I feel like when Netflix is like there's usually you have some sort of expectation what's going to happen in the next season, right? With Danny Rand, we kind of got this sense of okay, there's some new villains out there. We still need to find out what's going on with Kung Lan, with Luke Cage. We kind of got this sense of the whole build-up with Heroes for Hire is going to come up with Daredevil season 2. We kind of got this build-up to the Defenders, and so for Jessica Jones, there's not a lot of concrete evidence. I think it's good that they leave a little bit of unfinished business for season 3. And that was kind of going to be my discussion for you. Is I threw this out there. It's the wildest guess in the world. Do you know who Muse is in the Daredevil comics? No? Okay. So Muse...
No.
And I came up with this idea. It's probably not even true, but I would laugh if I was right. Muse is this really bad villain in Daredevil, and he's an artist. And he tends to kill his victims.
Right, so is this the murdering Inhuman?
I don't know if he's an Inhuman or not.
Yeah, has this gone on recently on the Charles Soule run, like in the last year? Yeah. So he's an Inhuman, and in that arc, actually a big part of the arc is Daredevil working with a New York detective cop who's a very senior veteran cop, who became an Inhuman when the Terrigen Mist was released. And actually, he's kind of become a pivotal character in some ways in that whole Inhuman context because he is a kind of law enforcement liaison. And there's structures within, it's a bit of an aside, there's structures in the Marvel universe that have been established that where if it's a crime committed by an Inhuman, the Inhumans come in and get jurisdiction. And this guy consistently shows up as like the lead. So it's kind of cool because it's another kind of noirish kind of element. But yeah.
I was going to say Oscar could become Muse in season 3 and be our big bad. But that was like so far-fetched though. But I'm thinking, he's an artist. He has a criminal background. His artwork is kind of like Muse's. It would be it would be the perfect twist. But it's probably far off. But I just threw it out there.
Yeah, I couldn't see that happen. Muse is like textbook sociopath / psychopath, serial killer to the bone. I
probably never had kids.
Right. Yeah, well, I can only see that happening if they do something really traumatic with Wildcat, right? Like if they killed Vito, right? Sometime like near the end of the season, I could see that pushing him over the edge. I think it would be interesting, and I do feel like because of the very noirish setting of Jessica Jones, I feel like that's an excellent character to bring onto the show. My guess is that they wouldn't Inhuman him up, which again, I was thinking about that as I was setting up all the hardware and stuff for the podcast. I continue to be frustrated by this whole, we set up this whole universe, but we continue to ignore it and not utilize like this whole construct that we build. In the DC world, I get it because there was a corporate executive studio decision that like what was on the CW was not going to commingle with what's on the big screen. But Marvel hasn't done that. Marvel has established a TV universe on Netflix, a TV universe on regular network television, and they have the movies, and they're connected, right? That is the byline of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Is that it's all connected, right? Or the MCU, and like I don't understand why.
We only got like a little bit of slice, I feel like, in Jessica Jones because they mentioned the Raft.
Raft, right. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, with the Raft, where have we seen or heard that? Because I'm sorry, I'm older. I frequently get confused and I have to double check like what I've read in the comics versus what I saw in the movies versus what I've heard on shit, right? Like, so I think, have they mentioned the Raft in the movies?
The movies? Yeah, okay. Because it was a huge part of the movies. What are you talking about? I can't remember if it was Avengers. It must have been Avengers 2. They're all incarcerated. No, it wasn't Avengers 2. It was Civil War. Civil War.
That's where they were. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Civil War. Gotcha. They were all incarcerated
on the raft. Okay.
Yeah, in the raft, and then we also heard about the raft in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, very frequently. And I don't think it was in Avengers 1 or 2. It might have been. I don't remember.
No, it makes sense that it was in Civil War. I have to check because we get so many, particularly when it comes to S.H.I.E.L.D. constructs, we get so many like little tiny references, right? But then they don't involve like.
And it's weird how Jessica knows about the raft. Like, did somebody whisper to her? Like, is this public knowledge that the raft exists?
Well, and again, this is why I have to check, right? Because it would make sense to me that she would know about the raft because in the comics she was an Avenger, right? Before she opened Alias Investigations, and it's unclear whether or not this is part of that Netflix continuity or not. But we get references to the Triskelion and all these secret S.H.I.E.L.D. bases, and then they get name dropped on the shows. But sometimes, I don't know, man. I'm not an expert on tracking all this stuff for continuity, so I figure it's just better to ask.
Maybe I'll try to ask that question at the Stan Lee convention or next weekend. Right. Is there some clarity that we can get where Netflix is included in the movies?
Yeah, I think they clearly are. It's just that it's so infrequent that it's mentioned or brought up that I'm watching Jessica Jones now. I hear her mention it, but then I have to reach back to Civil War, which was what 2-3 years ago.
3 years, yeah.
And and try and remember, was it mentioned there? It's also interesting because season 1 of Jessica Jones was 2014, and in the comics, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the setup is when she catches Purple Man, he gets sent to the raft, and that's where he's isolated, so he can't affect anyone. But that's not what happens in Jessica Jones season 1. Clearly, all right. So,
another thing is, did you catch that Stan Lee kind of cameo that we had on the bus
in this season?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the chemistry the relationship between Jessica Jones and her mom, again, and this is my also trying to understand some of the negative criticism I've seen about the show. There were some cringe-worthy script lines, dialogue, in the whole banter between her and her mother. It was kind of funny because it was the closest thing to normal that I've seen in her relationships. Her cringing because her mom brings up the topic of sex between her and her dad. Talking bad about the father, about being a control freak and having to be the one who was driving the car, that kind of stuff. So I kind of chuckled at some of that stuff. There were a couple times that I cringed. But at the end of the day, like you said, it comes down to this whole notion of her coming around to the recognition. And it's a little, on television, we've kind of seen a little bit. It's a little bit similar to the struggle of the character of Barry Allen on The Flash, in that it's wanting this family thing that you've wanted for, so badly for so long, and eventually coming to the realization that you have to be the one to end it. And I thought, again, I think at one of the games I've been recently playing is Max Payne, and I love Max Payne because of that noir. The noir little comic book graphic novel panels that were, constituted cutscenes in between the different levels of action. And so I loved the noir lines here, is this how I get my mom? And then at the end of episode 9, her saying, this is how I lose my mom. So awesome. But yeah, it was interesting to see that go back and forth between the two of them. The next kind of topical thing I wanted us to tackle is, and I wanted to hear your opinion on, is there a bad guy in this? Because Jessica is fixating on the notion of Carl, I think his name is
Carl Malice, yeah.
Malice. Which is kind of funny. If you have the subtitles up, they spell it Malus.
No, I think he is. I think he's the protagonist. I don't think he's the villain that we typically think of, because he's not his intentions weren't bad, right? His intentions were good. I guess that's debatable, right? Then,
right.
in my mind, he wanted to heal people. The way he did about it, unethical, wrong. There was things that were awful that he did, right? Because he knew about her killing the people, because she was afraid that she was going to get found out and be experimented on. So anytime anybody got close to revealing her or Carl, they would get killed. And he kind of blatantly knew about this and let it just happen.
It said he didn't want to know, right?
Yeah,
he kind of knew, but he never pulled the thread on it.
Yeah. But then she comes to it, he's like, she finds him and he's like, you know what, I could turn you in, but I'm worried about somebody somewhere finding this shit and mass producing it. And so they kind of realize that this guy needs to go off the radar. Honestly, I would have just, this guy's way too dangerous. You should just kill him right now, though.
Right. And one of the things I found interesting in the relationship between her mom, just to go back to that for a moment, is there is a point, I can't remember, it may have been episode 8. And episode 8 was AKA 8 We Got Fun. And Jessica's mother says something about, it's what people do when they love each other or whatever. And Jessica just kind of looks at her, doesn't say anything, and she just kind of has the twisted, it's the sarcastic look on her face. And a moment passes where there's no dialogue, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, Jessica can't get her mind wrapped around the concept of what two people loving each other is like.
Yeah, it's true.
She doesn't have that concept to grasp onto, and I thought that was really interesting. It took me a little bit off base when, in episode 7, aka I Want Your Cray Cray, where she kind of viciously, immediately latches on to the notion that Malice is the bad guy in this whole thing, that it is his experimentation with people. Each time, as far as we know, his experimentation on people were people who were on the verge of death. But of course, earlier in the season, we had Jessica also mentioned that, yes, but specifically with people who didn't have families, who, would be interested in tracking him down. So your feeling is that Malice is a little bit maligned in this dialogue, and that he is potentially not the bad guy that Jessica is making him out to be. The question that leaves is her mom the bad guy? Or one of my suspicions on why people are having a problem grasping onto this season, myself included, is that there isn't a clear, this is the villain, right? It's, and I'm not a huge fan of the anti-hero thing. I don't believe in the anti-hero. I'm like, no, if you murder people, you're a murderer. You're the bad guy, right? There's no excusing that and saying, oh, well, he's an anti-hero. Well,
but then you'd have to say, the Winter Soldier's a bad guy too, right? But he's not. He was mind controlled. He was trained to do these.
And I think that's a little different. I don't think of the Winter Soldier as an anti-hero. I think of the Winter Soldier as a guy who was mind controlled. When I say anti-hero, I mean a little bit like Dexter. I'm like,
okay,
no, dude's a serial killer, right? I'm like, yes, he's done it to bad people, and I get it. I hate rude people as well. I should say I hate rude people. I strongly dislike rude people, but Dexter is a serial killer, right? There's no making him out to be an okay guy. So yeah, that's more of the context of what I meant. But yeah, I think a large part, my sense of it is it's really hard to put a thumb on who's the bad guy. Jessica goes kind of wavers back and forth between saying that her mom is a murderer and a killer. Yes, she is, but she clearly, the medical procedures, and that's a matter of, okay, is she insane, right? Or has she just biologically lost the ability to reason, and apply reason in that manner? I don't know. I think of her mother as a force of nature, and like, look, is a tiger a killer? Yes. Is a tiger a murderer? I don't know that I would put it in that context.
Right. Yeah, I think she's more of a tiger.
Yeah.
I think the villain is Malice, if you have to say.
Okay.
Because even though his intentions were good, he's still a villain, right? He caused this issue that we have. He caused Jessica to be the way she is. He caused Alyssa to be this tiger that's on the loose. And there's kind of even references to that where Alyssa says, "Oh, I need to be in a steel cage." And man, just wait till you see episode 10 because things just get crazy, with this whole madness. And I mean, the other thing I think that we have going on too is this whole super serum thing. We still don't know who made Kozlov's, who that organization was.
Right.
I think they could very much come back and be the villain of season 3. Like, that's my other guess, other than my muse.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It'd be a little weird, right? Because that organization is almost kind of a little Shield-like. So it'd be interesting to see how they play that. Yeah. So, but I also feel like it was kind of weird for Nuke to be on Jessica Jones in the first place. But yeah, it'll be interesting. We should see how that goes. Third topic I wanted to bring up with you is Trish. So.
And I didn't realize it. You probably said this 1,000 times, but she's Hellcat, right? Or can become Hellcat.
That she is that character from the comics. So she is Patsy Walker, who in the comics is Hellcat. I guess the first thing on this topic that I want to say is, God bless Rachel Taylor. Like, I actually think, stepping back and looking at the whole thing, I think she is actually coming off as potentially the most versatile and most actress-like casting in this whole thing, because, man, does she have to swallow some pride every episode? Like, that, I want your cray-cray video at the opening of episode 7, like, that was cringeworthy. And for her, and the same thing.
Are you talking about where she goes off on the radio?
No. When she's when they're doing the flashback scenes, and there's a thing where she did like an MTV like pop song video.
Oh, that was like, ugh.
Yeah, and then same thing, like I can't remember exactly what episode, but somewhere between episodes 4 through 6, where she did like a kid's birthday party, and was portraying her Patsy character, singing the theme song. I'm like, man, you gotta swallow your pride when you come on the set that day to do that. And they didn't, it sounded like her voice. So I guess she actually sang the song. It's not like they brought somebody in to do it for her. So she had to live through that as well. So again, my hat's off to Rachel Taylor, who I think can definitely come off as undersung on this show. But unfortunately, we didn't get a ton of her and Malcolm, which I thought was one of the most interesting character sets for episodes 4 through 6.
No, see, that was good. The scene where he had his relapse pretty much, when he took the enhancer. Like, that was pretty deep, I thought.
Yeah, but very brief. Like, we didn't, after they hooked up, I was looking forward to kind of a lot of, I kind of really wanted them to be a thing. Right?
Oh, my gosh, no.
And
I did not want to see that.
And we didn't get that, right? So, which unfortunately deprived us of scenes of those two characters being foils and playing off of each other. Again, we did kind of get that. We got scenes where we were able to see them in momentary dialogues together, pointing out, at least on Malcolm's part, pointing out Trish's flaws, which I thought was very important to portray. And also, interestingly, to see him take his cues based on the the personalities of the relationship and not on the physical aspects, right? Because most dudes would have been like, yeah, whatever, keep taking that inhaler as long as we're having sex, I'm good, right? So it was very interesting to see him walk that back, right, and go, look, you know, you're into some stuff that I don't want to go down that path. I don't think what you're doing is the right thing, and I don't want to be a part of it. So I thought that was very interesting. But I wanted to see more of them on screen together. And like I said, unfortunately, we didn't get that. But I think her story continues to develop in a very interesting manner.
Yeah. I'm very shocked because we see her go crazy on the TV show, and then she goes on the live network and she's like, "Oh shit, I'm out of my drug," and she's back to normal Trish.
Right, which we haven't seen yet. That's episode 10.
Okay.
Because episode 9 ends with that scene where she gets the call from the producer at ZCM.
Okay.
She goes to take the inhaler and it's empty, and I'm like, "Yep, should have been thinking about the fact that she had a limited supply." So I thought that was very interesting, and I'm curious to see where that goes. Still waiting to see who is Malcolm's dad. He pops off in episode 9 because the guy who's walking him down makes some comment about his dad. I thought one of the best scenes and one of the coolest developmental stages for Malcolm was seeing him pick up Jessica's case.
Yeah, that was so good.
And then confront Benowitz in the bar, and kind of do what Jessica does, which is, look, I'm not going to turn you in, but go home, tell your wife, right? You know, and then to see him play Benowitz against the other partner, Chow. I really want to see how that turns out.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see that coming at first. I thought he was just going to be the noble thing, but instead, he's got the long play right here.
Right, yeah. I just like you, I didn't expect that either. I thought he was just going to go and confront the guy in the bar and get information. I thought it was a wonderful plot twist, plot development, plot angle, to have him play it out, right? And and come off with it the way he did. I guess topical area 4. What do you think about the progression of Hogarth and her having the healer come over and starting the relationship with Inez?
Well, this is one of the things where I'm trying to think pre-episode 10. How I feel, which is I wish we made this to episode 10, but I honestly felt that was great. I was really happy for her and to see her change of heart, and this was kind of the high. Everybody's kind of happy. Jessica's with her mom, Malcolm's doing his own thing, Hogarth is healed, and then I feel and then we have kind of the low where her mom's arrested and all that come about and all that.
Yeah, I think the thing for me about the Hogarth arc is, like I said, I'm fine if she's healed. I don't know that, having a person who has ALS supposedly on the show works very well as a story across, multiple seasons. It was kind of interesting. I guess they tried the same thing on Empire, and then they walked that back at the end of the first season, and it turned out the guy, the lead character, Lucius Lyon, didn't have ALS. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Jerry go through this journey and wind up being healed. But my problem is, and I guess this maybe kind of frames a lot of how I feel about characters multiple characters on the show, not just bad guys, need to get their comeuppance, right? Trish needs to have something happen to her to make her understand that what she's doing has consequences.
I love this scene. I hope I'm not going to episode 10. Sorry, my mind's I'm trying to see if I can. Okay, did you see the scene where Trish talks to the mom in the prison, or is that episode 10?
That's episode 10.
Okay, then I won't say anything about that yet.
Right. So Trish needs to suffer consequences. I think of all people, Malcolm is probably dealing with all of the things swirling around him the best. The mother needs to have some consequences happen to her. But Hogarth also needs to have I feel bad for her character, coming from where she came from, watching her father go through what he went through. But quite honestly, if Jerry Hogarth doesn't become less of the jerkhole that she is, right? I would just assume she remains sick, right? And that's a horrible thing to say. It's a fictional character, so maybe I don't feel that bad. But I'm I don't want her to just get healed. And look, this is the way I feel about myself too, right?
I was kind of disappointed because all of a sudden, she, now that she says she's healed and all this, she says, "Oh, well, maybe we'll just leave Carl," because I've always seen Jerry. She might be a bitch, right? But she's always on the right side of everything. She's backing up Danny. She's backing up, she's always been on the right side of things, even though she's a jerk. Now this is the first time we've seen her kind of say, "Oh, this guy's done some bad things, but maybe we should let him live." Jerry, no, you've always been somebody who's been let's do the right thing, kind of the right side of the law. So that kind of was
I agree with you that I think she's portrayed like that on the other shows. So on Iron Fist in particular, she's portrayed as this person who has Danny's back, right? And is trying to get the scales to even out with respect to what happened to him and his family. But on Jessica Jones, she is a horrible human being. Just the thing with her ex-wife in season 1, her
she's a horrible person, but when it comes to law and justice,
okay, yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I would even say ish on that. Once something is going to trial, yes, but I mean, there's a lot of she tried to get Kilgrave to tell the ex-wife to sign the divorce papers, right? She was going to break him out just long enough to get him to do that, despite all of the bad things he had done to other people.
That's right. I forgot about that. Wasn't she the one that let him out of that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think she let him out at one point in that, but they eventually got a hold of him again. But yeah, and I can't remember all the plot twists, but there's a point where he captures her, and she had mentioned to him before. I think she had mentioned to him that she wanted him that if she helped him get out, the deal was he had to go tell her wife to sign the divorce papers. Maybe we're still seeing it somewhat of a reform of Jerry to that she is going to be truly on the side of justice for these people. I hope so. She wades in and takes some what I would call charity cases, right? So for season 1, she was taking the case of the young lady Kilgrave had made murder her parents.
Yeah,
she didn't believe it largely, but even once she found out the truth and was trying to help, she was also concurrently trying to. She's very Machiavellian, right? She's very much this is the law, and I need to operate within it. But here's an area the law doesn't really cover, so I'm going to use that to my advantage to get what I want, right? There's that. There's the issue in this season with her partners and the fact that she is terminally ill and that there are things written into their partnership and contract that say she has to reveal that to investors and the partners and step away from the practice. And she's refusing, she's just declaring herself an exception to that rule, right? So, yeah, it's very, again, she and Jessica are kind of made for each other. So, so yeah. So yeah, overall, I surprised myself kind of. I don't know that I would say that I liked this arc, but I was okay with this arc. I feel like it's a natural outcome after, so if it were up to me, I wouldn't have done the mom thing, right? Not really crazy about that whole element. I would have preferred that area of her life be shrouded in mystery. But now, getting past episodes 4 through 6, I'm okay, now that you've done it, you've got to deal with it, right? And I didn't feel horrible about the way it was dealt with in episode 7 through 9. It does feel a little burdensome, and I'm kind of wanting to get back to more of just Jessica Jones just being a PI.
Right, because she hasn't been doing any PI cases. It's all been personal. It's all been personal, interrelational, which I'm a psychology, sociology major, so I'm really into all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it feeds off me personally. I mean, I can see how a lot of people miss kind of the detective noir action part of it.
Right. And like I said, I don't inherently dislike it. There's other things I would prefer to see her doing, right? And I would have liked to have seen more. I'm still waiting to see like a Netflix Marvel cameo or something from the MCU. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like after all the setup they've done to this point, it would be warranted.
I know we're pretty high and dry. We haven't even seen Foggy again.
Right, we had him walk in the one scene, right, and get his butt chewed by Jerry, and then that was it. So
it's like, hey, everybody, I'm still here. That's about it.
Right. So I don't know. I think that kind of covers everything I wanted to talk about 7 through 9. I guess it's a necessary arc in the series. I guess I'm probably more interested to see what goes on episodes 10 through 13 to carry the show out. So I don't know. Anything else of concern to you or of note to you in this particular arc of the series?
I mean, it's weird, right? Because, I think a lot of people want to see Jessica finally have some sense of normal life with Oscar. And maybe we'll see a little bit of that in episode or season 3 in the first couple episodes. And then maybe she'll, pick up and have to deal with some issue again. I really hope that we get to see a little bit more of Trish and maybe unraveling the mystery of Simpsons, that organization and, what their truth, what they're up to. And I kind of just wondering if somehow like this whole, the other thing I hope is that this whole IGH thing is kind of like done and wrapped up. I don't want to be like, oh, somebody's got the recipe now. And then they got to stop, from this whole thing going out. I can't remember, but was it episode 9 where she confronts Carl? No, it wasn't. That was episode 10.
Right. There's some early scenes in episode 7 between Jessica and Carl when Jess, Carl, and Alyssa are all in the house together, but then Carl, Alyssa tells Carl to take off, and then we don't see him for the remainder of episode 7, nor in 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope the IGH thing is put to bed. Having Kozlov's organization or Kozlov's former organization being the big bad in season 3, I could get. I'm actually not overly interested in seeing further development between her and Oscar because, and again, this is why sometimes this stuff is hard to grasp because you would like to get your hopes up, but then you don't want to. Obviously, in the comics, who she winds up with is Luke Cage.
Yeah. To
the point where they have a child now together, and that's actually what I'm more interested in seeing. But then they're doing the whole thing with Luke and the night nurse. So and I'm still kind of amazed even at this point because all of this stuff started in, when was Daredevil season 1? Like 2013?
I think so, right?
Yeah, so I question the longevity and how long they can kind of keep this stuff going.
I think they've just begun, honestly, because part of it, I'm wondering what's going to happen when DC launches their streaming service come 2019. Are we all of a sudden going to see?
Well, you mean Disney?
Yeah, the Disney streaming service.
Yeah.
So are we going to see all of these Netflix heroes appear on 2 platforms? Are they going to all move to Disney? Are they going to lose popularity because everybody's going to be watching Disney instead?
Yeah, no, I think what I would assume, given the ginormous corporate ravenous beast that Disney is, I would readily expect all these things get yanked to the Disney Channel.
It's like the Disney Channel, though. It's the Disney Stream.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'll just call it the Disney Channel.
Okay. See, that has like a whole nother meaning in my mind.
Right? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that flows out. Well, just as interesting, or maybe even more so, to see what happens with the former Fox properties, right? And where they wound up.
I'm still questioning if that's going to go through or not, because they've talked about Comcast trying to buy out Fox as well.
I don't think there's any way in the world that the FTC or FCC would let that happen, since Comcast is already merged with Universal and NBC.
Okay.
And continues to flirt with the regulations that they're supposed to be adhering to, with regards to like giving customers, the ability to buy data only, internet only Comcast service and things like that. So yeah, and particularly since even under this administration, what was it that was just waved off? That was recently the whole Time Warner. I don't know. There was some. I guess Time Warner Charter merger that was about to go down. So
because I feel like there's been no like confidence that X-Men is going to be picked up by the Marvel Universe, or at least anytime soon, because people were complaining that the new Lego Marvel Heroes 2 had 0 X-Men characters, and that there's just been a lack of. I mean, even if they picked up, the Fox and all that, they don't have to continue on with the X-Men or Fantastic Four. They might just use Deadpool or something.
So it's hard to read the tea leaves, right? So what I will say is, I have seen. Isn't there a recent Marvel series coming out that's called like Death of the Inhumans or something?
I don't know. That's new to me.
There's something going on with the Inhumans that the title of it, and again, I'm not tracking. Yes, Marvel. Yeah, 3 days ago, Marvel announces Death of the Inhuman series. I think they are about to swerve hard away from the Inhumans being the preeminent, race in the Marvel universe that they use to kind of supplant the X-Men. They've restarted the Fantastic Four comic book.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
It seems to me that there are indications within the comic book side of the house that they are walking back from the scorched earth policy that they had taken to diminishing and marginalizing the importance of the properties that Fox had the movie rights to. That seems to be an indication of they're already starting to twist and turn and pivot on that evolution. I know I have all due respect for Casey, the editor-in-chief at Geeks Worldwide, who heads up our parent network, the GWW Radio Network. His perception and belief is that we're not going to see a lot of the movie properties that were in flight, like New Mutants and Dark Phoenix, come to the screen. But my question, I guess the reason I wouldn't take that stance is movie deals are heavily wrapped around financing. And that financing, to me, if a movie is already funded, which means multiple investors are involved, not just Fox, and primary photography has already been shot, like, I don't know how you stop something like that, because you have to give that money back to all the investors, right? All the advertisers who put, like, I don't know how you turn that off. I realize that it may Feige might have a problem with it with like these things that got spooled up outside of his architectural purview, but I don't know how you turn them off. I actually still believe that as this merger goes on, we will see mutant content and things that Fox has historically start working themselves into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or start working themselves into the production umbrella of Disney. They may not become part of the MCU. Like I said, I wrote a post, I guess, middle of last year, that stated my opinion that I don't know that merging all that stuff is necessarily the best thing, and it could be bad. So I don't think it's horrible for those things to remain separate series. It's kind of like that in the comics, right? Like historically, before they started this whole AVX kind of stuff, historically you had an Avengers editorial and an X-Men editorial, and those two, except for periodic crossovers, they kind of operated as if they were in like their own universes, right?
Yeah.
You had yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go on. No, I was gonna say, honestly, too, my feelings about the Inhumans and the X-Men is like, even though you might say the X-Men are definitely more popular and more well known than the Inhumans, I still think both of those aren't even in comparison to where like the popularity of the Netflix or the main movies, because when you look at merchandise, when you talk to people, more people are selling Spider-Man, Avengers, some Daredevil stuff, some Luke Cage stuff.
Yeah, I think if you go back, like, I think the Avengers popularity now is relatively recent in modern times. I think historically, like even as a kid growing up, when I first got into comics, everybody raved about the X-Men. Like Avengers had a period of time when they were the popular thing in Marvel, but as I came into comics, like it was all X-Men, and that was further reinforced by the '90s cartoon, and kind of continued into the 21st century. It's only been by virtue of
the movies.
Yeah, the incredible popularity of Iron Man, which I still to this day don't entirely understand. I guess credit that to Robert Downey Jr. for reinvigorating that character. But that's what everybody's kind of interested in now. Whereas if you look at things in a strictly comic book context, I wouldn't say that would have been the case. Were it not for Kevin Feige pulling off the whammy with the Avengers in the MCU.
Yeah. And the thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, even though that's a main running, I think we're on their 5th season now of it, I still don't see a lot of merchandise. I know they tried to start an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic book series. And it seems like other than, like, people really following Daisy along, like, I think she's, like, Daisy and Coulson are kind of the only characters that people are caring about, I think, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah,
like Fitz and Simmons people and all of those other people, it's like, because you could take Daisy and Coulson and put them back into the movie universe and get rid of the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really kind of disappointed at how the whole thing with Coulson has turned out as far as just his importance in the Marvel universe. I mean,
it really dropped off.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is weird. I feel like it's only on just to make sure that the Marvel universe stays prominent in people's minds in between the movies, right? That's kind of the only real reason. It's continuing. Although, like I said, I think the character of Phil Coulson is wonderful and important, and I just wish he was given larger purchase, right, in the Marvel universe. He was, when they brought him into the comics, he was great because his whole shtick was kind of how he had been this normal guy, but he became an expert on all, like he knew everybody's power sets. He knew how to effectively like could have led the Avengers, right? Because he understood how each person's power set could neutralize like a Marvel villain. He understood who all the villains were and how dangerous certain ones were and which ones weren't. He was just kind of this whole codex, right, of the Marvel universe was kind of how he was built in those comics that he was in. He was prominent in the whole when Maria Hill got a hold of a cosmic cube and actually like embedded it or had it become a corporeal being. He was involved with that whole thing. So the character is great. It's just disappointing that we don't get to see more of him having an impact on the Marvel universe. So
yeah. what are your thoughts? One last question. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about as fine? Do you think we'll ever? I mean, a lot of people I've heard have talked about it. Are we ever going to see any of the TV show people come back into one of these movies?
I don't know. I never want to say never, right? It's one of the things that confuses me and frustrates me, right? Like I don't, other than cost, right, and scheduling, I don't understand why you can't have
at least a quick cameo where like we see like Luke Cage and all of them, or a mention would be cool in the movies
right.
too.
Well, it would be very cool, like Infinity War with as many characters as are going to be like it doesn't make sense. Why can you not have Danny Rand, why can't you have this whole chaotic World War extinction level event that's going on? Why can you not have a scene where like the Avengers are entangled in something at street level and they're like, we need to not be involved in this. Like, we need to get onto the Thanos thing. Why can you not have the Defenders show up and say, we got this, go handle Thanos, right? Like, that would be a perfect scene to me. To see, it would be great to see, like Cap being overwhelmed, right? And just have Luke Cage just walk onto the scene and, like, rip everybody off Cap, right? And have Cap go, or have Luke Cage show him a lot of respect. Like, look, we're strong, but you guys are big heroes. Like, we respect what you, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Defenders, the battle spilling over into Hell's Kitchen, right? And the Defenders being like, Hell's Kitchen is ours. Like, we don't need your help, right?
Yes, that would be so perfect.
I don't understand why those types of things can't be done with like the 70 trailers that are in that overhead shot, right, of the Marvel Studio lot when they were filming. Like, I don't understand why you can't get 4 more people in there.
And I mean, I would love to see something Spider-Man wise, because in the comics, like Spider-Man's a part of that Brooklyn kind of protect that side of the universe, right?
Right.
And Moon Knight and all those people.
Yeah. Well, it's we'll see how it happens. Part of the thing of the Spider-Man Homecoming that didn't make the character feel as like there was, and I get it, right? It's a byproduct of where we are. It's tough maybe to do a Spider-Man that stays in New York that whole movie, but that was also problematic for me, right? He spent so many decades as a hero who was like, there were points where like people would propose him to the Avengers and the Avengers would say like, no, he's not good enough. There were points where the Avengers finally offered him a slot and he was like, no, like that's not me. That's not, where I fit. And I just, that movie didn't feel as grounded in Brooklyn as I wanted it to be. So I don't know. Well, we've pretty much covered the entire Marvel universe in comics, movies, and TV, which is not normally our shtick. But hey, it's the first Saturday of spring break, so a little extra time, I guess, we had available. So, Dave, unless you got anything else, I'm going to go ahead and take this out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. Once again, this has been episode number 3 of It's Another Thing, which is our entertainment series on the E2KG Network channel, which covers short format broadcast content. This segment, this season, this spring, we are covering Jessica Jones. We have one more episode left. Very impressed and very happy that we've actually knocked this out in about a month. It usually takes us longer because of scheduling conflicts. So we will be back shortly, sometime within the next week to week and a half, to do episode number 4 of It's Another Thing, where we will cover the finale, episodes 10 through 13 of Jessica Jones. Thanks so much for everyone who's joined in on the live show. I forgot to bring up the chat, so I hope I didn't miss anyone's comments. And thanks also for anybody who happens to swing by and check out the archive version of this video. We would be very happy if y'all would come on back. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel and tell all your friends. That's going to do it for us for this episode of It's Another Thing. Thanks again. We're out of here.